MeMonster.
Chapter 216. Murian and I returned to Taunia. Thanks to Izel's manipulation of the logs, it appeared to anything that we had simply been at the weekly dungeon. Although our absence lasted more than a day or two, enough to arouse suspicion, there was no evidence, so nothing happened. Anything continued operations as usual. With resources now being extracted from the ruins, we no longer faced any shortages. If we wanted, we could recruit hundreds of lower-tier heroes. The third airship, Tia, was completed in the hangar, and construction on the fourth and fifth airships was already underway. As our power grew, anything sent Party 1 to the 46th floor. Their mission was to bring Priya, who was trapped on the floating island, back to the ground. As expected, I hijacked the Church Army's airship that was circling the outskirts of the floating island and successfully rescued Priya. Up to this point, everything went as smoothly as other substages. But the 50th floor would be different. It would likely be the largest mission since I began conquering Taunia. According to Gugu-Khan, it was highly probable that named monsters like the Beast King and the Saintess, whom I had encountered on the 45th floor, would appear at the same time. Such monsters couldn't be defeated by sheer numbers. Sending a horde of underlings would only lead to a massacre. We needed to face them with elite heroes and end it decisively. Elite heroes, huh? In Taunia, the only ones who could be considered elite were the members of Party 1 and Party 2. There were 10 in total, and their growth rates far surpassed those of other heroes. Among them, Party 1 stood out. Top-tier 4-star Kishasha, the mage Katio, the exceptionally talented Jenna, the fiercely competitive Velkist, and myself. Even transferred to a comparable high-level account, they would still be top-tier heroes. The problem was, Taunia's difficulty was anything but ordinary. Besides being fundamentally tough, there was a prince who could manipulate interference power, making things even harder. I had grown stronger after obtaining the Black Dragon blood, but it still felt insufficient on my own. Of course, given enough time, the party members could catch up, but we didn't have that luxury. We needed to grow stronger quickly. The fastest way to strengthen heroes was to raise the level of their engravings. So, you're suggesting summoning another ancient species? In my private room on the 4th floor of the training center, Gugu-Khan was pecking diligently at his feed bowl. Kishasha had set up a feed bowl and water bottle here because a pigeon was always wandering around. If you could fully handle my power, it wouldn't matter, but you're still far from it. Tisk, tisk, such a lazy boy. With your potential, you can only use the 3rd stage. If I had your body, by now... I grabbed his neck, and Gugu-Khan cleared his throat. Anyway, look at this. Gugu-Khan held out something with his wings, a small, pale gray scale, old and worn. It was an item called Unidentified Shedding, picked up by a hero during an exploration dungeon mission. The description didn't reveal its use, so anything had planned to discard it, but it was left as junk. This is the scale of that annoying guy. Annoying guy? The White Dragon, Asinus. Asinus was one of the 4 founding members of Taunia, a monster on par with the Black Dragon. If you use this as a catalyst, it should be possible to summon him through the summoning ritual. Summoning an S-class monster with just 1 scale? I clicked my tongue. The only reason I could summon this guy before is because I had a top-tier summoning stone. Of course, I had no leftovers. The one I won in the Battle Royale was all I had. Top-tier summoning stones don't even drop from ruins. I didn't have any summoning stones I could use now. No need for such troublesome items. Just let me enter the dungeon and I'll summon him. Peck, peck, peck. Gugu-Khan kept pecking at his feed bowl. Have you opened the 2nd engraving? I narrowed my eyes. I knew what Gugu-Khan meant. As a 4-star, I could only have 1 engraving. To add another slot, I had to advance to 5-star. In other words, I needed to reach 5-star to have 2 engravings. Level 55. That was the requirement. After clearing the 49th floor and using synthesis well, reaching level 55 on this floor wouldn't be difficult. Are you saying to use the white dragon blood as my second engraving, or are you planning to give it to a subordinate? Efficiency-wise, that's correct. If I obtain the white dragon blood now, it would be like wielding two weapons with one hand. Even using just the main engraving wouldn't add much to combat efficiency, so it would be more efficient to pass the white dragon blood to others. Do you really think an ordinary human can handle that power? Foolishness. Even if they are blessed by the goddess, their vessel cannot contain us. If you try to force it, it will overflow and spill out. Gugu-kan stopped pecking and looked at me. Use it yourself. Our power is only granted to transcendent beings. The higher the engraving grade, the higher the dungeon's difficulty, and the higher the failure rate when engraved on a hero. The price of failure was contamination. In other words, the same as the hero dying. Don't worry, unlike with me, there will be no trial or whatever to survive. I frowned. If I wasn't careful, I could lose a hero in the engraving ceremony. Raising elite heroes isn't easy, so losing a strategy team member would be a huge loss. Are you saying to use 2 engravings together? That was also a challenge. The Black Dragon Blood wasn't a power that could be mastered in a day or two. It was a top-tier engraving that had to be steadily developed until reaching max level at 6-star. And now, adding another one? It wasn't impossible, but trying to master the White Dragon Blood at this stage might mean neither would be fully utilized. I needed to think about it. High return, high risk. Using the White Dragon Blood was too much of a gamble. Excuse me. While I was deep in thought, the door suddenly opened. Gugu-kan and I turned to the entrance at the same time. It was Velkist, drenched in sweat, as if he had just finished training. He walked straight toward us. "What's up?" "I heard your voice while passing by. Sorry if I interrupted. More importantly, Kwa!" Velkist grabbed Gugu-kan by the scruff and lifted him. "You rude punk! So this sparrow was the source of your power. Don't take me for a fool. I just been pretending not to know." "You brat! Let go right now!" The pigeon flapped frantically, but Velkist didn't budge. Gugu-kan dangled from Velkist's fingers. "What are you doing, Han? Why don't you kick this insolent brat out immediately?" I silently watched Velkist. He kept his usual expressionless face, but there was something in his eyes. "Velkist. Han. Do you want to get stronger?" Velkist smirked. The meaning was clear. There was no need to ask. "Yes." He must have figured out the situation from what I said outside. He must have been listening from the beginning. It felt odd. I thought I had caught up, but you kept getting further away. "It's unfair for you to use special powers alone, Senior," Velkist said self-deprecatingly. "Even that talentless spearman is risen higher, while I don't know what I'm doing lying down." "You fool! The power of the ancient species is not something a mere human can use. If someone unfit tries to wield it, they will be destroyed." "What is it squawking about?" "He said if someone unworthy tries to use the power, they'll be destroyed." "Ask him to evaluate me too. Am I special?" The pigeon flapped its wings roughly. Judging by Gugu-kan's reaction, there was nothing special about Velkist. He was just a human with outstanding talent. Well, it wasn't for me to decide anyway. Whether to handle that power or not was up to the individual. "It seems not. That's disappointing. Again, there's no need to warn me." Velkist already had an engraving, a mental skill-related one called Wildness. It wasn't high grade, but it was versatile and safe. If Velkist wanted the White Dragon Blood, he'd have to erase his existing engraving first. Asinus might not favor this guy. If so, he would die. Velkist let go of the pigeon. Freed from his grip, the pigeon squawked and spread its wings. "This rude brat! If my true power returns, I'll cut you to pieces." "What's it been squawking about since earlier?" "Don't mind it." "Sure. Let's see."
Assuming the white dragon blood was an S-class engraving, I calculated the probability of completing the summoning dungeon and successfully imprinting it considering Velkis' current grade and abilities. About 2%. One success in 50 attempts. If I were a master, I wouldn't attempt such an impossible task. Even after success, it would be the same. A power unmatched to a hero's level often causes disaster, like the contamination state triggered when I used Dragon's Descent. I managed to escape with Gugu-Khan's help, but Velkis might not be so fortunate. I've heard about the contamination state from the archer. If I get contaminated and get stuck, please take care of me. So, will you allow it? This brat. Are you seriously giving our great power to a mere human? I placed the feed bowl in front of the struggling Gugu-Khan. Eat a lot today. If there's anything you want to eat, let me know. Gook-gook-gook! I buried Gugu-Khan's beak in the feed bowl and whispered very quietly so only he could hear. I think this is the right. I repeat, I cannot guarantee your subordinate's life. I know, but what can I do when he insists on doing it? I was more aware than anyone of Velkist's efforts. Training from morning till night, he sweated and bled without stopping. If he had gone to another account, he would have been treated as the top and played a significant role as an ace. He was that excellent, but he was unlucky. If he had enough talent, effort, and mental strength, eventually it was just a matter of having a chance. In the past, I would have rejected it outright. If he failed, it would be a huge loss. But after watching Aaron overcome that task, my mind changed a bit. It might be a futile hope, but I decided to bet on it. I can't fight alone forever. I don't need subordinates who will just clean up after me. What I need now are comrades who can stand shoulder to shoulder with me. It's a power that doesn't suit a mere human. If that's the case, then just help him. I released my hand from Gugu-Khan's head. The pigeon pulled his beak out of the feed bowl and glared at Velkist. Huh, you'll see the fate of those who have the illusion of easily becoming stronger. Gugu-Khan, staring into Velkist's eyes, fell silent. Then, as if whispering, he said, "This guy is crazy." Huh, whatever. Happens, I won't be responsible. Do as you please. It will happen even if you don't like it. Gugu-Khan picked up the white dragon's shed skin with his wings and walked out.
Chapter 217. Preparations for opening the Descent Dungeon were progressing steadily. Obtaining the scale, a summoning catalyst for the ancient species that once ruled Taunia, the white dragon Isinus, was successful, but that was only the beginning. We still needed to create a dedicated summoning inscription stone based on it. Once again, I borrowed Izel's power. At first, Izel objected, knowing that Velkist, not me, would receive the high-level engraving. But eventually, she was persuaded. Super success! Han, 4 stars, has created Advanced Descent Stone, White Dragon's Soul. I successfully made the summoning stone. Even without the top-grade Descent Stone, there were spare Advanced Descent Stones obtained from events. According to the pigeon, while the black dragon was summoned through a secondary summoning method, this time would be different. He said that if we followed the proper process, we could summon it directly. And so, in the early morning while everyone was asleep, a rift in the dimension opened on the first floor of the plaza. I looked back. Velkist was sitting on a bench with his legs crossed. "Are you ready?" "Of course." Velkist stood up from the bench. Clink. The scabbard hanging from his belt rattled. Gugu-Khan, who was next to Velkist, jumped down to the ground. No matter how many times I think about this, it's reckless. Not sure if it will work out well. This isn't even for Han." Izel fluttered her wings. Without anything, we couldn't open the dimensional rift without borrowing Izel's power. Izel, still upset, puffed out her red-tinged cheeks. "It's a pity. If it were Han, he'd use that power better. That fool with his head full of fighting was—" "Don't mind her." "I won't." "Wah!" Splash! Izel, spinning like a pinwheel, crashed into the fountain. Entering the descent dungeon was done again without anything's knowledge. If anything were here, he might have had other ideas. He might have used the engraving on me, or even on Jenna. According to what I heard from Gugu-Khan,
The abilities of the White Dragon Blood were more suitable for a close combat hero than for an archer like Jenna. It's no wonder the Asinus family uses swords. I thought of Delphine, the heir of Asinus. She died absurdly during a mission. Despite inheriting the White Dragon Blood, she couldn't resist at all. If the 5-star summoning ticket prioritized summoning heroes from the same account, Delphine might have been summoned instead of Weir Young. That woman was also quite incompetent. If she had properly used the White Dragon Blood, that magician would be dead. Gugu Khan said that Delphine, said to be the Empire's strongest, could not fully utilize the power of the White Dragon Blood. Before the world transformed into a game, Taunia's military power seemed to have lagged behind expectations. If you gain the favor of that white dragon or whatever's inside, shouldn't that be better? Is it okay to just fight it? Foolish. How strong do you think you are? Everything about you is unsatisfactory. It says you'd be useless in a fight. You'll be crushed like a bug. Izel translated Gugu Khan's complaints. Velkist frowned slightly but didn't touch Gugu Khan. Then he muttered with his eyes closed, "I'm here to escape being a bug." No matter how much a bug grows, can it become a lion? I chuckled. I feel like I've heard this kind of dialogue before. I don't know what's in there, but I don't think you'll fight. The rest is up to you. Do your best. All right. Velkist jingled the pouch he held in his left hand. Inside was the summoning stone I made. I'm off. Velkist walked into the dimensional rift. I really don't know about this. I take no responsibility. Don't blame me later. Gugu Khan followed Velkist briskly. Thud. The door to the dimensional rift closed. Soon, a faint light seeped through the crack in the door. Velkist and Halcyon must be moving to the descent dungeon. But, Loki, isn't a high-level engraving a bit much for a 4-star hero? Izel sat on my shoulder. She wasn't lamenting that I couldn't use the White Dragon Blood. She was simply curious. Normally, yes, it's tough for a 4-star. Izel wasn't wrong. Even if one obtained a high-level engraving above grade A, using it on a low-level hero would likely result in failure. Adapting to high-level engravings required a process. Starting with lower-grade engravings, the hero had to grow. As the hero's grade increased, gradually bestowing higher-level engravings would make it manageable up to the grade A engraving at the 6-star max level. It's a gamble. I don't like gambling. Minimizing variables and increasing opportunities to intervene with skill is also a basic condition for being a ranker. But here, I can only gamble. So far, most have worked, but I might fail someday. I just hope the cost isn't too high. I'm back. It was near dawn when I met Velkist again. I examined Velkist. He hadn't changed outwardly. He was the same as when he went in. How did it go? It was nothing much, just a few trivial questions and answers. Velkist handed me a leather pouch. When I opened it, a white glowing bead was visible. The abilities of the inscription appeared right after that. True White Dragon Blood, S, Level 1. Proof of the pure bloodline of the ancient White Dragon. It contains unprecedented power. Unique skill, 1, White Dragon Horn. Other unknown skills exist. Like the Black Dragon, the inscription window was simple, only a few lines of description. S grade. An engraving grade sought after by many masters in Pick-Me-Up. S-grade engravings were difficult to obtain and had boundless potential, and Taunia had already obtained 2 S-grade engravings with this. The rewards matched the difficulty level. Knowing this, some hardcore users might deliberately try to increase the difficulty. Tsk, a commoner gaining the Wave King's power. The end of the world is nigh. Wave King, huh? Velkist murmured. It seemed he could hear Gugu Khan's voice during the descent process. Gugu Khan continued in a bored tone. Why do you think the Asinus family could reign as the Empire's strongest for thousands of years? If you can handle that power, you'll be dozens of times stronger than now. I don't care what that is, but I like that I can become stronger. What confidence without even completing the engraving ritual? It's bound to fail anyway. Can we start right away? Velkist looked at me. I shook my head. We need preparation. You must be tired too. Then I'll go first. Thank you for your help. After bowing his head to me, Velkist took the pouch with the engraving stone and went up the stairs. Wave King, what a cool name. It should have been used on Loki. Cool, he's just full of hot air. So if you two fight, who would win? Of course I would. That's not a clear answer. Will you lose? You noisy fairy. There's such a thing as compatibility in the world, and that guy's skills are broken.
Leaving the two fools behind, I climbed the stairs. I was curious about Anything's reaction. The next day, in the evening, Anything logged in and grasped the situation. Velkist had opened the descent dungeon and brought back an S-grade engraving stone. Anything seemed surprised for a moment but quickly composed himself. As this wasn't the first time, he immediately checked the help tab for engraving. I suggested that Anything use the engraving stone on Velkist. Warning: inscriptions can fail, and failed heroes will enter a corrupted state. Do you really want to attempt the inscription? No. That was natural. Starting engraving. Using engraving stone True White Dragon Blood S. Target hero Velkist, 4 stars. Success rate, 2%. 2%. The cost of failure was hero corruption. No sane person would attempt such a gamble. It's different for me. Velkist's success rate was clear, almost impossible to succeed. Meanwhile, starting engraving. Using engraving stone, True White Dragon Blood S, target hero Han, 4 stars, success rate 93%. Warning: the target hero lacks engraving slots. Promotion is required. If you proceed, the inscription in slot 1 will be destroyed. Warning: engraving can fail and failed heroes will enter a corrupted state. This was the log that popped up when Anything tried to use the engraving stone on me. Despite having the same hero grade, the success rates were vastly different. If things continued, the White Dragon Blood would likely be engraved on me. Anything would engrave the White Dragon Blood on me as soon as a second engraving slot opened. There's only one way. Anything would surely be angry at me because I acted against his will. Objectively, Anything's judgment was right. The success rate is 2%. Early morning, in the private room of the training center, I told Velkist, 50 attempts for 1 success. I'm really weak. Velkist smiled bitterly. It's not about strength or weakness. You're not ready yet. Then what about you? My case is different. It's not a matter of talent. It's more about the circumstances, I guess. Maybe such things are also considered talent. Even if you succeed, it's not the end. You won't get strong right away. I know that too. Training is required. The pigeon's words about dying are not a joke. I had faced corruption several times while learning Black Dragon Blood. This power is strong, but dangerous. I know that too. As I requested, if it seems I won't make it, please end me. Velkist handed me his scabbard. He entrusted his weapon to me. His request to kill me was sincere. I accepted the scabbard. You don't have to force it. Then should I keep crawling on the ground? Aaron also broke through that wall. I don't want to be miserable anymore. If I can't get stronger through effort and talent, what else do I have? Only my life. Velkist gritted his teeth as if recalling something. I apologize. I must look really pathetic now. I have no excuse even if my head is cut off, but I can't bear it anymore. Why do you want to be strong? Because this is all I have. Velkist spoke emotionlessly. I don't care if I fail the mission. There's nothing for me in that gutter. I sighed. Velkist had no family name. Having no family name was a mark of being below a slave in Townia. I didn't know his past, but I could guess the gist of it. Please. All right. Isel, fluttering beside me, nodded. I reached for the window floating in my vision. Starting engraving. Using engraving stone, True White Dragon Blood S, target hero Velkist, 4 stars. Success rate 2%. Warning:
The target hero lacks engraving slots. Promotion is required. If you proceed, the inscription in slot 1 will be destroyed. Warning: engraving can fail, and failed heroes will enter a corrupted state. Do you really want to attempt the engraving? Prepare yourself. Velkist placed his hand on the surface of the engraving stone. Yes. Zzz. The white inscription stone began to vibrate. The white aura emanating from the engraving stone climbed up Velkist's right arm. Eventually, it headed for Velkist's head. Engraving starts. Instantly, ah! Velkist knelt. His eyes were bloodshot, wide open.
Chapter 218. Velkist lay flat on the floor, his hands clenched into fists. He was straining so hard that his entire forearm trembled. Danger. Velkist, 4 stars, is beginning to become contaminated. A hissing sound escaped from Velkist's gaping mouth. Black veins emerged beside his eyes, clear signs of contamination. During the process of engraving a high-level imprint, it was inevitable to go through a state of contamination at least once. From now on, it was crucial. If he could overcome it, he would become the master of the imprint. If he couldn't... Sring! I half drew the sword from the sheath Velkist had given me. He still had his reason. Although his face was twisted in pain, there was still light in his eyes. Thud. Thud, thud. Velkist slammed his fist on the floor. After a few more hits, blood began to seep through his clenched fists. Danger. Velkist, 4 stars. Contamination is worsening. Master, be careful. A contaminated hero cannot be recovered. Reap. With a tearing sound, black veins appeared all over his body. Velkist vomited black, viscous blood from his mouth. I told you so. Cancel it now. He hasn't completely crossed over yet. Gugu-Khan hurriedly approached Velkist. The pigeon tried to push away the glowing white orb near Velkist. Stop, Ra. Velkist grabbed Gugu-Khan's wing. It's not over yet. Velkist brought the orb to his abdomen as if embracing it. Then he muttered in a voice mixed with metallic sound. I need to become stronger. This madman, he's lost his mind. What are you doing, Han? The pigeon looked at me with fierce eyes. I continued to watch Velkist, my sword half drawn. Don't stop him. Velkist looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. This is my chosen path. I'll take responsibility. Just dying won't count as responsibility. Of course. Caw. Velkist vomited black blood once more. I decided to die on the battlefield, so I won't die in such a disgraceful manner. The sound of Velkist gritting his teeth echoed throughout the room. It hadn't been this way from the beginning. I recalled Iloka's precedent. In terms of efficiency, she shouldn't have participated in the sea dragon subjugation, but she begged me several times to let her fight with us. This was no different. A 2% chance gamble. I once again indulged a comrade's whim. Of course, there was no turning back now. If I stopped here, Velkist would resent me for the rest of his life. Thank you. Velkist looked at me and managed a difficult smile. I sighed deeply. Now all I could do was watch to see what would happen to him. Crack. The sound of bones dislocating. The skin tore, and pure white scales emerged from the gaps. Velkist let out a silent scream. Crack. From his temples, white, horn-like growths started to emerge. They resembled those of the legitimate successor of Asinus, Delphina. I gripped the sword handle tightly. The contamination was still progressing. Black blood flowed from his eyes down his entire body. The characteristic black veins of a contaminated person were so prominent they protruded outside the skin. The moment these veins invaded the heart, he would turn into a monster. Not yet. White dragon scales and horns continued to emerge. The jewel-like sparkling white scales gradually covered Velkist's skin. The black veins receded as if pushed back by the white dragon aura. Ha! This is... Gugu-Khan exhaled as if in disbelief. Is it a success? But something was off. It was different from my experience. When I engraved the black dragon blood, it seeped in naturally. But the white dragon's blood seemed to be rampaging inside Velkist. Velkist occasionally twitched his body, but showed no other reaction, as if he had already fainted. Through his torn clothes, his flesh and bones were exposed. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't recognize who he was. Twitch. Velkist, who was lying down, moved his fingers. Then slowly, he began to rise. "He's here." Gugu-Khan took a few steps back from Velkist. Velkist's eyelids lifted as he stood still, silver eyes that seemed to pierce through everything. His mouth opened and closed. "This body is pathetic." The first words from Velkist's mouth were sincere complaints. "It's lacking in functionality, durability, and potential. It's far from drawing out my power." "I agree." Gugu-Khan scratched his wing with his front paw. I laughed bitterly. "Are you Han of Israt?" The ancestor of the four great families, Asinus, who had possessed Velkist, looked at me. A look of surprise crossed Asinus's eyes as he scanned me. "You have better qualities than I expected. I thought that swindler was lying again." "Who are you calling a swindler?" "But why do I have to inhabit such a flawed person? There is a suitable body right in front of me. What's the difference between him and me? We are all the same." The white dragon Asinus had an endlessly languid look in his eyes. I continued speaking. "Sorry to say this at our first meeting, but help him out. He tries hard and won't cause any trouble. Again, this body is pathetic. It feels like I made a bad purchase." "So what?" "I want to change my master. Please release me." "That's not possible. If I use my full power, this guy will die instantly." "Maybe now, but who knows later?" "I didn't descend to play word games. To save Taunia, I need a more efficient body." "You won't really know. He might become incredibly strong." Asinus tilted his head. "This is all in your favor, so why refuse? This guy can't even properly contain me. Are you going to say he might change later too?" "Yes, so what?" "What a fool. You can't even take what's given." "All right. If you want to make this guy stronger that badly, do as you wish." Asinus lowered his eyes and said, "From now on, the power of the White Dragon King, Deltiare Asinus, belongs to this guy." Crack. The horn that had sprouted from his temple disappeared. So did the white scales and the black veins that signaled contamination. "Ha ha ha, but I wonder how far he can go." Asinus's eyes closed. At that moment, Velkist staggered and collapsed against the wall. "Ta-da! Engraving is complete. A special ability is inscribed in Velkist. 4 stars. Finally, the engraving message appeared. There was no failure, but the subsequent explanation made me sigh. True White Dragon Blood S. Level 1. Blood that proves the pure lineage of the ancient White Dragon. It holds unprecedented power. Unique skill. 1. White Dragon Horn. There are many unknown skills. Note 1. True White Dragon Blood cannot be used for some reason. The worst-case scenario of falling into contamination was avoided, but it was hard to call this a success. It's sealed. When an imprint inappropriate for a hero's level is bestowed, even if the engraving succeeds, the ability will be sealed. This time, the engraving was half success, half failure. Although the visible chance was 2%, I predicted Velkist would not die. If Asinus had completely rejected Velkist, there would have been signs in the Descent dungeon. However, the White Dragon entrusted him with the engraving stone. It was proof that he was willing to enter his body to some extent. It was a gamble, but not a baseless one. After a while, Velkist opened his eyes. In a hoarse voice, Velkist spoke. "What happened?" "You can see for yourself. You're alive." I tossed Velkist his sheath. Velkist caught it with his right hand. "I don't feel much." "Asinus is definitely within you. You just can't sense it because it's faint. You don't have the same affinity as he does. Did you really think you could fully use his power?" Gugu-Khan approached Velkist. "If I can't use it, what's the point? That's just for now. Can it be overcome through training?" "Not with something like this. Can a human twist their neck 180 degrees no matter how much they train? It's the same logic. You can't handle the white dragon blood. Velkist frowned. In that case, there was a secret art passed down in the Asinus family. It's called the dragon strength technique. It's a ritual that makes a human body closer to that of a dragon. Asinus successors have received the dragon strength technique for generations. It was the first I had heard of it, but it wasn't an outlandish story. The Asinus successor, Delphine, didn't have the appearance of an ordinary human either. You are on your own for the next part. I don't know anything else. I'm out. Gugu Khan turned his back and waddled his fat bottom through the slightly open door. I'm on my own, huh? Well, considering everything, it's clear what Velkist needs right now. As you can see, you can't use the engraving in your current state. Seems so. There's no reaction. Velkist. I open my mouth. For the time being, step out of the first party. Don't participate in missions, don't train either. Don't even help the newcomers. Since you ate something so expensive, you need to make it worth it. Don't come back until you can properly use the white dragon blood. As Gugu Khan said, if you undergo the Asinus secret art, you should be able to use the engraving. Even if that happens, he won't be able to use it perfectly. The rest will be up to Velkist himself. Just like when I practice with the black dragon blood, he will have to become accustomed to the ability through trial and error. He will likely cross life and death several times during that process. Velkist, listening quietly to my words, muttered, "So I finally stood on the same ground." The same ground. I also get to roll the dice now, like you and that spear user. Velkist muttered, looking up. How far can I go? I was really curious about that too. Clack. Velkist, who had attached the sheath to his belt, stood up. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Are you leaving right now? No goodbyes to the others. Is that necessary? Nerissa will be disappointed. As if. Velkist left the room without hesitation. Soon after, I heard the sound of the training hall door opening. Self-action activated. Master, the hero Velkist, 4 stars, has begun an exploration. A stipend has been automatically distributed to the hero. 10,000 gold has been spent. Tips. If you want to stop the autonomous hero, turn off the self-action function. 2 weeks, huh? It's best to set the 50th floor climbing date around that time. We should clear up to the 49th floor beforehand. Move faster, quickly. I'll try. On my way back to the dormitory from the private practice room, I suddenly heard unfamiliar voices from downstairs. There were stairs leading to the lower floor of the training hall. I lightly stepped on the stairs and looked down. Good, just like that. There, 5 men and women were sweating in a circle in an open space. Each held a practice weapon. They moved busily, drawing a large circle. It was formation practice. They swung their wooden swords and moved their feet as if there were monsters in front of them. Even though it was late at night, they were still practicing. Currently, we rarely do group training. The first party members had each established their own fighting style and surpassed the stage of relying on formations. The physical training we used to do every morning had slowed down as our physical abilities increased. Sparring had also become rare, and there were few opportunities to meet during training. This brings me back memories. If Velkist achieves his goal and returns, the training hall might once again look like then. I watched them sweating and rolling in the open space and returned only when the morning dawned.
Chapter 219. Until Velkist returned from the exploration dungeon, his absence was filled by a hero named Binik from the second party. Originally, Edis had volunteered to substitute after hearing about Velkist's departure, but she was responsible for commanding all the heroes outside of the first party. Unless absolutely necessary, she couldn't be hastily deployed for missions. Binik, who joined the second party after clearing the 20th floor, was a thief class known for his calm demeanor and cool-headed judgment. He was also someone Edis recommended. At the very least, he should be able to handle himself, though there might not be any fighting. I looked up. Floor 47. Mission type, exploration. Objective, investigate an unfamiliar place. It was an exploration mission type I had experienced several times before.
Nothing special. So it's a reconnaissance mission. The current time was bright midday. The sun was shining from the clearing where we were first summoned, but now it was pitch dark. The branches of a gigantic tree extending 100 meters up blocked the sky. This place, deep in the forest, was as dark as night. Quack, 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 quack. I looked to the side. Monsters were shrieking in the dark, dense forest. Their eyes glimmered ominously. If not for the transparent barrier between us, I would have been in a fierce battle with them by now. Only observation. The monsters outside the barrier couldn't touch the heroes, so the heroes could stroll along the inner paths of the field, easily assessing the enemy's strength for the next mission. It had been a while since we had such a traditional mission. It doesn't look any different. The leaves under my feet crumbled. The fallen leaves scattered throughout the forest path were pitch black, and the blackened trees were grotesquely twisted. And an unidentified monster was wandering on the left side of the forest. Its body, extending above the trees, was at least 30 meters tall. It was a large one. There are many. They were hiding all over the forest. The lush branches were shaking in all directions, and the bushes were constantly rustling. Just as I was watching them, they were watching me. I narrowed my eyes. Hundreds of meters ahead, a rounded object, resembling a high-rise building, stood tall. Its shell pulsated as if it was about to hatch soon. The forest, once serene, had turned into a place of horror because of that egg. It seems all the monsters in Townia have been mobilized. Near the egg, shadows towering high swayed, dozens to hundreds of large monsters. They were eagerly waiting for intruders. In the sky, visible through the gaps in the trees, numerous dots floated. This time, they were flying monsters, known as the nemesis of airships. How many are there? I roughly counted the heads of the monsters I had seen while passing by. The number was not in the tens or hundreds. Thousands. Considering the hidden ones, it could be in the tens of thousands. Too many. Since clearing the 45th floor, we have steadily increased our forces. As a result, Townia could muster a massive force unmatched before. But even then, it was only a few hundred. The 50th floor is the turning point. If you win this battle, you can easily surpass the 60th floor. The enemy would have used all the forces from the upper floors. Guku-kan said the prince who could interfere with missions had used the monsters from the upper floors. If we could clear the 50th floor, the following missions would be easy. It's easier said than done. This meant the mission difficulty on the 50th floor would be beyond imagination. It's not just the number of monsters. I recalled the two named monsters that had troubled me, the Beast King and the Saintess, who were former heroes. They were likely to appear on the 50th floor. Considering the gravity of the situation, even the prince, the boss of the 80th floor, might show up. No more. Even with resources, it's impossible. At the current account level, we couldn't increase our forces any further. Only after breaking through the 50th floor, conducting research, and significantly expanding our facilities once more could we manage thousands of heroes. The absence of the Asini's family was deeply felt. If they were here, they would have been excellent shields. They said they were in seclusion. Priya told me after visiting the Asini's family. Priasis, who succeeded in escaping to the surface with our help on the 46th floor, had visited the Asini's family again. However, the head of Asini's, shocked by the loss of his heir, declared that he would no longer involve himself in the empire and the church's affairs, effectively rendering Asini's out of our reach. He said he was sorry. I couldn't count how many times I heard that from Priya. Unable to persuade them, Priya had looked at me with a near-crying expression, and now she was patrolling the forest outskirts with the other members of the first party. Ki, 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 ki. Gang, gang, gang. Goblins that appeared on the forest path bared their teeth at me. They unceasingly stabbed their daggers into the transparent barrier between us. It was a futile effort, but they didn't stop. Blue sparks scattered from the wall where the blades were embedded. Kyak, kyak, kyak. 31 level 38 corrupted goblins. Their once green skin had turned black. Their bodies were bulging with hideous veins. Level 38. The monsters here were not only numerous, but significantly stronger. I could only sigh. With the current forces, we couldn't engage in a full-scale battle with them. The only viable tactics were luring and mobile warfare using airships, avoiding battles as much as possible, and quickly eliminating the egg with a completed key. Even mobile warfare required a sturdy shield at the front to be effective. This is the limit. Soon I reached the edge of where observation was possible. Beyond this point, I couldn't pass due to the transparent wall. I took in the scenery of the forest once more before turning back. So, Oppa, how many are there? At the gathering place on the outskirts of the forest, Jenna approached me with quick steps and asked me, "You can see for yourself. There are too many." "It's an overwhelming number. The stench is so bad it's hard to breathe. The whole forest reeks." Kashasha wrinkled her nose. Katio, who was checking the exploration magic circle set up in the corner, also spoke. "The church's forces are likely in the forest's interior as well. Combining the monsters and the church's forces, the number easily exceeds 10,000. 10,000? That's a bit extreme. I wonder how we ended up in such a place. We've been utterly deceived." Katio let out a deep sigh. Priya remained silent with a gloomy expression. Everyone's faces were grim. "So what should we do then? Are there any other places we should check? What about that Asini's place? Isn't there a chance they'll change their minds and help us?"
If that were the case, we could solve this problem. Even though their successor and expedition were wiped out, the Asinas family wasn't destroyed. According to Priya, they still had a significant number of troops. They just didn't want to help us. "I'm sorry. If only I had persuaded them better." Priya bowed her head. "It's not your fault. It's just the situation that's messed up. In the original scenario of Taunia, we would have proceeded with the mission strategy with the powerful Asinas family, but things got severely messed up when Delphine died on the 45th floor. I had hoped history would be corrected and Delphine would come back to life as we moved up the floors, but that didn't happen. The story of Asinas' expedition being annihilated remained, and Asinas, who lost their successor following Priya's advice, became distrustful of her. "Isn't everyone our enemy now?" Katio looked back at me and said. I nodded. Groups belonging to the Empire. 3 of the 4 major families were initially in the enemy camp. The Empire's guards and the Church's forces were enemies, and the only neutral Asinas turned their back on us. All major armed groups in Taunia had turned against us. "This is crazy. What do we do?" Katio scratched his head irritably. "Shouldn't we stay calm? This isn't the first time we've faced such enemies, right?" "That's true, but if we look for a way gradually, we'll find it. If worst comes to worst, we'll manage by ourselves. We've prepared so hard. We won't lose, right?" "We need to analyze the situation once more. Let's see." The first party members were having a heated discussion. I, who had been standing back, retreated outside. "Where are you going?" Jenna asked. "For a breath of fresh air." I gave a rough answer and walked toward the outskirts of the forest. Worrying in a cramped place wouldn't help. Even on Earth, I used to go for walks when strategies hit a snag. It's somewhat better. While the inside of the forest was dark, the outside was relatively okay. Sunlight filtered through well, and the trees and leaves were green. It looked more like a forest. Even the outer edges of the forest were divided into accessible and inaccessible areas. I pushed through the roots of a large tree and bushes, moving outward. The mission showed no sign of ending soon. I intended to move as far as I could. Are there monsters here too? I stopped my steps. In the distance, I sensed a faint presence. The presence was slowly approaching where I was. It wasn't a monster. Noticing that, I hid in the bushes.
After about 5 minutes, they revealed themselves. Two. Two men were walking down the path. They were moving outside the transparent wall where I couldn't go. They weren't church soldiers. They were dressed in well-organized leather armor and armed with weapons at their waists. The man on the left looked no older than his early 20s. He still had a youthful appearance. The man on the right had a rough, seasoned look as if he'd been through a lot. Why did we come to a place like this? There's so much to do. The rough-looking man grumbled. His voice and tone didn't match his face. Just look at it. That weird-looking egg is supposed to bring peace. Who believes that? Isn't it the church's word? We have no choice but to follow it. And if you really wanted to investigate, you could have sent the subordinates. Subordinates? What subordinates? They're employees. We're your subordinates, brother. You're 10 years older than me. The young man and the rough-looking man kept bickering as they walked through the forest. I observed the young man. The rough-looking man called him brother. His body was well-balanced and his walking posture was steady. He's quite strong. Clearly, he'd undergone extensive training. Additionally, there was a familiar yet strange smell. Something indescribable. Bush-shish-shish. I looked at my left arm. A dark red lightning flickered and disappeared. The young man with the cheerful expression looked across the forest and spoke. There are a lot of monsters. More than I can count. They're swarming. Aren't the high-ups handling it? Now that I mention it, there have almost been no monster attacks lately. Maybe the lords are gathering them to deal with them all at once. Peaceful, indeed. This smells fishy. The young man frowned. Are you planning an attack with the guys? Attack what? How can we handle this much? It's just suspicious, that's all. Why can't we? Are you forgetting who you are? You're the idol of all mercenaries in Kaunia. You conquered all the dungeons on the continent in less than 10 years. What a feat! That's why I follow you as my brother. If you say the word, thousands of mercenaries in Kaunia will rise like a swarm. Quiet. Yes, brother. Don't call me brother. Then the mercenary king? Who's the mercenary king? Who else could you call the mercenary king than you? The man chuckled.
Chapter 220. A young man known as the Mercenary King and a rough-looking man moved through the forest, bickering as they went. I followed them, keeping low. It'd be better to stop now. What if we attract their attention by going deeper? A few monsters are no problem, but if all the monsters in this forest gather, we'll have a headache. We're just here to see that egg bringing peace. It's not visible from here. I don't get why that egg matters at all. You can go back first if you want. How could I leave my brother here? My wife would kill me. Then just follow quietly. The two men pushed through thick branches and bushes, moving forward. As the young man said, the egg standing tall in the middle of the forest was not visible due to the large trees blocking the view. However, after about 5 minutes of walking, they came across a clearing where they could see the egg. Is this the item that brings peace to the continent? Well, if peace meant everyone dying, they might be right. There are a lot of presences, but no monsters are attacking. The young man looked puzzled. Aren't they afraid of you? Afraid? And I told you not to call me brother. Call me boss. I'm not used to that weird title. How long will you cling to old-fashioned titles? We need to change too. Okay, boss. Boss, huh? I smirked. He didn't seem like an ordinary mercenary. Brother Yoshu. The man had called the young man that. It sounded familiar from somewhere. Following them for a few more minutes, I began to recall forgotten memories. The conclusion came quickly. Yoshu. He was a kid I bought information from in the city during my first dungeon exploration. He begged for a gold coin talking about some brilliant business idea. I gave him a coin to get rid of him because he kept bothering me. Ridiculous. Less than half a year had passed in the waiting room since then, but it seemed different inside Tonia. The kid who barely reached my waist had grown up significantly. But the most surprising thing was something else. A kid I helped by chance on the street has become such a big shot. And he showed up right when help was needed.
a probability less than a fraction of a percent. It couldn't happen without several coincidences stacking up. It's not just a coincidence. I sighed. Even if it was close to reality, this world was ultimately a game. System adjustments were made. The original reinforcements disappeared. Therefore, they added a new group of NPCs to assist the hero's mission, and they appeared in the scouting mission before the boss stage to inform us. They can't escape it. No matter how much the prince and his followers tried to overturn it, the rules didn't change. A mission that couldn't be completed couldn't exist. No matter how difficult, there was always a strategy. They only twisted the situation briefly, but the world remained the same. That's the egg. The clearing on the outskirts of the forest. The young man muttered while looking at the tall egg in the distance. The monsters scattered around didn't attack the young man and the man. More precisely, they couldn't attack. "It looks horrific," the man spat out. The egg was tens of meters in size. The translucent outer shell quivered with grayish flesh underneath. In the middle of the shell, a red eyeball with blood vessels spread out, swaying. The young man frowned while staring at the egg. "I need to check it out properly." "What do you plan on doing after checking it out?" "The Empire and the Church are hiding a lot of things from us. They suddenly put a bounty on the princess and this incident too. They don't tell us commoners anything." "What if the high-ups are lying?" "Then—" He hesitated and then shut his mouth. He shook his head. "Let's go back for now." The young man turned around. As their figures gradually faded away, I stood up from the bushes only after they disappeared from sight. The mission clear window didn't appear. I thought the reconnaissance was sufficient. No. Since the clear window didn't appear, there must be something left to do. I brushed off the leaves on my shoulder and headed to the members' gathering place. In this case, a breakthrough is only the answer. A breakthrough. Form the airship fleet into a wedge formation and pierce through the monster horde. We can't engage in a full-scale battle. We have to get to the egg quickly and finish the task. That means we will have to make a lot of sacrifices. More than half of our forces will be lost, but we have no choice. Jenna and KTO were intensely discussing mission strategies. Ignoring the monsters and breaking through to the egg to complete the objective was one of the strategies I had considered. I passed by Bennek, who was silently sharpening his dagger, and Kishasha, who was yawning. Priasis sat at the base of a large tree. She had a visibly gloomy expression, her silver eyebrows furrowed. "Ah, Han, you're here." Priasis forced a smile, seeing me. She then raised her voice a little artificially. "Do you want my help with anything? I have nothing to do anyway." "It's not that you can't do anything." "I have no skill for fighting. I've practiced swordsmanship consistently, but compared to you, I'm like a firefly before the moon." "Of course, the growth rate of heroes, enhanced by skills and engravings, couldn't be compared to NPCs." "Do you want to borrow my sword? Or maybe do you need a massage? Your shoulders must be aching a bit." Priasis's smile was playful but tinged with bitterness. "I don't need—" I stopped myself. I remembered being scolded by Edis for saying that before. She said I had no understanding of people's feelings. "Come here." Priasis patted the spot next to her. I sat down without a word, and Priasis started to massage my shoulders. "This shoulder bears the future of Tonia. If it doesn't relax properly, we're in trouble." It didn't feel like much at all, like a feather brushing against me. "It reminds me of old times," Priasis whispered. "I used to massage the prince's shoulders like this. He said my massages were the best. I wonder what he's doing now." "He's alive, I'm sure." "That's a relief. It's been almost 10 years since I entered the palace. I wish I could see his face at least once." "Listen, Priasis, there's something you need to do." "Hey, I'm good at massages. Do you want me to do it for all 5 of you?" Priasis continued to gently pat my shoulder blades. "Have you heard of the Mercenary King?" The Mercenary King? I think I remember. I heard from a bard in a tavern. He and his companions conquered dungeons across the continent. But why?" "You need to leave immediately and recruit this Mercenary King." Prias's hand stopped. I continued. He seems to have significant influence in the mercenary world. If we can recruit him, we might get reinforcements for this battle. As you can see, we can't leave here. We're tied to the mission. You're the only one who can do it. Can't you do it? I turned to look at Prias. She was blinking rapidly.
You want me to bring him? Yes. I heard many wealthy people tried to make a contract with him but failed. Why would such a big shot talk to me, a mere fallen princess? I have no money or honor. I'm just a powerless... Priya bit her lip. Sorry, it seems I was going to make the same mistake again. I was about to run away again. If it's too hard, you don't have to do it. We'll find another way. No, I'll go. He should be nearby. I'll find him immediately. Priya stood up. She started walking towards the path leading outside, determined to find the mercenary king. Isn't she being too rash? I called out, Priya, tell him that Han Israt has come to collect the gold coin. A gold coin? He'll understand. The rest is up to you. I'm counting on you. Priya flinched slightly. I smiled. Good luck. Priya slowly nodded and then moved forward. As she did, a light enveloped us. Stage clear. Jenna, 4 stars. Kishasha, 4 stars, leveled up. Reward, 300,000 gold, 3 intermediate-grade forest essences, 13 A-grade planks. MVP, Han, 4 stars. The stage clear message appeared. Looking back, I saw the members returning to the waiting room one by one. Finally! There wasn't much time left until the 50th floor. There was no time to rest. I started organizing tasks in the waiting room. Particles of light enveloped me. Now, loading. As I was preparing to return, a strange message appeared. Restoring. Connection to the server was lost due to an error. Please wait a moment. Static. The leaves swaying in the wind froze in place. The forest scenery turned a cold ashen gray. This wasn't the first time. It happened once before, 10th floor, when Tell directly intervened in the mission. Someone's here. I tried to turn around. Stay still. An unidentified voice. Gender and tone were indistinguishable. It's been a long time since I received a massage from that child. What is this? It's just a brief greeting before we meet on the battlefield. A greeting? We are bound by a peculiar fate. A red bandage flickered before my eyes. Han Israt, we intend to test your qualifications. If you truly wish to conquer the tower and learn the hidden truth of Mobius, overcome the absurdities that lie ahead. If you fail, I'll destroy this broken world. Static. The scenery regained its color. Restoration complete. Reconnecting to the server. We apologize for the inconvenience. I immediately turned around. There was only a pile of leftover leaves. Was that a declaration of war? It seems the prince can really use the interference power. He briefly imitated Tell's actions. Destroy. Is that what Persiane meant by liberation? He seemed to be making a big deal out of it, but it didn't matter. The prince will appear on the 50th floor. He won't be able to directly fight due to the level difference, but he will cause trouble from afar. If I were him, I wouldn't have given such a hint. Light enveloped my body, and when I opened my eyes again, I was back in the dimensional rift. I looked ahead. The mirror in the center of the room glimmered faintly. Climb the tower and save the world. Main dungeon, current climb floor 47. Climb the tower and save the world. It's a phrase I've seen thousands of times as a master and now as a hero. I'm utterly tired of it. Oppa, what's wrong? Nothing. Jenna looked at me curiously from outside. I shook my head and followed her into the plaza. There's a lot to do. The 50th floor was just around the corner.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.